we started noticing was a lot of the mega stars, global mega stars that are not able to monetize their content on traditional places like YouTube loved our platform because it gave them a conduit to connect directly with their fan base. And what I mean by that is, we have an artist, for example, that's based in Colombia, another one that's based in Peru, where they've had hundreds of millions of streams, but have gotten paid very little for it, because if there's no advertising, then they can't monetize it. We have people based in Tanzania that have billions of streams that they're not getting paid for, because again, if traditional platforms are paying based on monetizing the content through advertising, and they say to you, well, we didn't make any money from advertising in your country, that's one aspect. The other aspect is, depending on the stream, even for platforms like Spotify that pay per stream, they still pay in your local currency. So if you're in Mexico, you get, you might get, let's say, 0.5 pesos. If I'm in the UK, I'll get 0.5 pence. So if your million streams in Mexico is going to pay you less than my million streams in the UK. So that's such a challenge for a lot of global artists, because they're spending the same amount of money to create the content. And so this was a great opportunity for them to connect directly to their fans, and for their fans to be able to pay them directly, instead of having to rely on, advertising and other platforms that were not really built for their locales.
Welcome to Dream Pushers. We connect you with Web3's vanguard, creators and entrepreneurs shaping the future. Hosted by Chris Jonu and presented by Draper University.
I want to quickly mention that none of this is investment advice or financial advice, trading advice, or any sort of advice. And we do not recommend any cryptocurrency or investing in any projects. We're just showcasing the stories of founders. Welcome back, Draper University Web3 podcast. This is Chris Jonu. And today we have one of my favorite entrepreneurs in Mary Spio. And I got to know Mary through this podcast, and she is just such an incredible individual, like a real superstar, and completely understated, that you just forget that she's not only an exceptional entrepreneur, but literally a rocket scientist, right? So just an incredible individual and operator. And she is an entrepreneur and inventor based in the US. She's founder and CEO of CEEK VR, that's with a C. That is a virtual reality content platform. I'd say metaverse that offers immersive experiences for music, sports, and other events. And she has hosted some of the biggest stars from sports and music. So definitely check it out. Prior to that, she's worked for such companies as Boeing, Lucasfilms, and Microsoft, and has developed technologies for virtual reality and digital media. She's been recognized for her work as a technology entrepreneur and has received numerous awards, including the prestigious Ebony Magazine Power 100 Award. An incredible entrepreneur. Hope you love the story. Cheers.
Hey, Mary, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Excited to be here.
Today, I really just wanted to go through your background and through to the story of CEEK, because it's super cool. We got a lot of incredible, entertainment brands, entertainers already on platform. And I'd love to just hear how an aerospace engineer enters the entertainment world and everything, just kind of how it unfolds. So thanks for joining me.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Thanks, Chris.
So I usually start with the question, was there a mother or father that was an entrepreneur, or can you pinpoint, early on in your childhood, that time when you're being entrepreneurial?
What's interesting is that I grew up, my mom is an entrepreneur, and I didn't catch the bug till much later on. But looking back, I was in her classroom from the very beginning. I was helping her count money before I knew my ABCs. So I think it was inevitable. But yeah, my mom is an entrepreneur and my dad was an attorney.
Incredible. And what did your mom do?
What she did was quite interesting too. I don't know very many women that were doing that at the time, but she used to facilitate, like she worked with the farmers, because I grew up in Ghana. She worked with the farmers in the remote areas to bring like, corn and produce to different schools and different grocery stores. So that's what she did.
And dad was an attorney, so I imagine there was quite an emphasis on education at home.
Yeah, there was quite a bit of emphasis on education at home. Yeah. So
And so can you tell me a little bit about like school and university, or however that unfolded?
So in terms of school, I had my primary education in Ghana, and then when I was 16, I came back to the US. So I continued high school in the US and then went to the military. I was actually in the Air Force, and I got a scholarship while I was in the Air Force to go back to university. And so I went back to Syracuse University to get my degree in electrical engineering and computer science, and then also went to Georgia Tech to do my graduate studies once again in electrical engineering and computer science. So, but it wasn't as straight a path as, it sounds. There was a lot of stops and questions in between, but that's, what ultimately happened. But I was very encouraged. In addition to my dad being an attorney, he was also a college professor. Interestingly enough, he taught business, commerce, and entrepreneurship. So that was something that, with him being a college professor, he always emphasized education. That was really big for him.
Absolutely. Well, I want to hear about the path that wasn't so straight. Tell me, please. So, I mean, why the Air Force? Were you just kind of, were you drawn to that? How did you end up there?
When I came back to the US, I was 16, I was living on my own. I was trying to figure out, the things that I would do. I was working at McDonald's, and I heard, a commercial about the military, right? Doing more by 5 a.m. than most people do in their lifetime. And at that time, being a fry cook, I knew I needed to do something different. So I went to join I originally went to join the Army, and then I ended up joining the Air Force. The Air Force recruiter was much nicer. So, but that's how that came about. And so while I was in the Air Force is really when I found I did extremely well, right? So the test that I took to go in the Air Force, I was informed that I had scored the highest in electronics. I had also scored the highest in math and most of the technology subjects. So I was placed in that electronic track. And so I became a satellite technician. While working as a satellite technician, it was something that I truly loved, all aspects of that. And so I applied for that scholarship to go back to school to study deep space science. And that was really the path for me, and the path of it not being so straightforward. So it wasn't like, your normal finish high school, go to university, mom and dad pays for it, and then you go through the process knowing exactly what you want to do. But for me, because I didn't know any engineers, I didn't know any deep space scientists for that matter. So it was not even in the realm of possibility for me to think that, oh, I'm going to be a deep space scientist, or that I'm going to do some of the things that I've been able to do working with the Boeing company as head of satellite communication, putting satellites out in space and Lucasfilms and all of this stuff. So it kind of unfolded, life kind of unfolded in that way for me through a series of very, very lucky encounters.
Yeah, and I imagine, like, I'm just thinking as you're saying this too, right? Like the learning with the satellites at the Air Force, I imagine that you were just much more hands-on than everyone at university, and probably running rings around them. Is that true, right? Because it's like less theory and more like you would just get to work on it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so like when I went back, so I graduated number one in my class at electrical engineering at Syracuse University. And a big part of that was because I had already been hands-on, right? So if we were talking about electromagnetics and resistors and capacitors and a lot of things that were theory to many people. I had actually worked as a satellite technician for 4 years. So it wasn't just theory for me, it was stuff that I understood very intimately. And so it really helped in terms of my background. So I kind of did it the reverse in terms of being hands-on and then going back to school to learn the theory behind everything else. So it made it so much more of a smoother journey for me.
And is this, I gotta just curious, so is this, at any point, is this where VR comes in? I mean, I'm just seeing more where like, yeah, I mean, maybe it's a stupid question, but I do see now, like, I'm thinking like, it's called Rejig or whatever, and they have the, the headset, and people are trying to use now VR to put engines together and stuff. I'm just curious.
Yeah, how the VR comes in actually. So working as a deep space scientist, I used to build satellites, and then I also wanted to, but I've always been attracted to the application side of things. So I wanted to do something that to me, I found fun. So I went to work as a television broadcast engineer. So I would help television stations broadcast their content. I was approached by the Boeing company, then they were building Boeing Digital Cinema to help distribute movies over satellite. I had certain technologies that they purchased the patents to, and I went to work for them as head of satellite communications. So that was really where the transition began for me, and working to stream very high data rate content, being movies, so working with the likes of Lucasfilms, 20th Century Fox, streaming content over satellite. And then from there, after Boeing Digital Cinema, I had a lot of clients in the movie industry that also wanted to continue to stream content. So I launched an online video platform because I realized that, satellite wasn't as cost effective for distribution of movies, especially for independents. So I created an online video platform. And that became a SaaS product that was used by the likes of Coca-Cola, Tribune News. We partnered with Xbox for the content distribution and a lot of radio stations. And so as a result of that, we garnered an audience on the platform of over 50 million. So then we started working with a lot of the record labels because they wanted to reach that audience through the radio stations that were using our online video platform. Xbox also wanted the content from the labels, so that's how that online video platform led to partnership with Microsoft Xbox and radio stations and all of that stuff. And so it was satellite streaming, online streaming. I happened to try on the Oculus. I knew immediately that media had turned a corner, right? And that the next level or the next evolution for content was going to be just being inside of the content. We'd gone from text and photos, Web 1.0 to Web 2.0 doing video. And then I knew immediately when I tried the Oculus on, because I wanted to do everything inside of VR, concerts, movies, and the list goes on. And so all the things that were not available, I knew exactly how to create a platform using VR to make those things available, because I created a streaming protocol for satellite, created a streaming protocol for online, and then now decided to create one for VR, which is, on mobile, on desktops, on consoles, and everything else. So that's how the connection came about from being a deep space scientist to focusing on streaming technologies. And of course, with CEEK VR, being that we created a technology that allowed people to stream content to all these different virtual worlds, not just iOS and Android, but also to Oculus, to HTC, to desktop, smart TVs, and the rest. We were able to partner with the labels again, because they wanted to reach the audiences within. So it's kind of like, I'm kind of doing the same thing over and over, but it's with a different technology.
Yeah, but I'd almost say like one's kind of like right brain, one's kind of left brain. Did you just kind of immerse yourself in the space to where you become great at executing in the creative space?
I've always been, I say I've always been a child of two worlds, right? I never really just fit in one place. Like I don't fit perfectly into the right brain or the left brain. I operate best as a whole brain. So when I can access both the left and the right brain. And so for me, digital cinema, for example, being able to sit with the directors and the people that were working on Star Wars and all that, and then translating that to the engineers, that was my sweet spot. And so that's the lane that I created for myself. That's where I live the best. And that's what I do here at CEEK. I can sit with Lady Gaga's team and talk about wildly creative concepts and then be able to translate that to the tech team and the animators and for us and the people, and explain to them how we use Newtonian physics to achieve the type of worlds that we want to be able to do. So it's actually my sweet spot. I'm one of those.
And so can you just, let's get into the story of CEEK, because I love this product. How did you kind of start this, and how did you go about like bringing in, is this just from, networking and the experience you said with Star Wars and everything else, where you're getting to know who the best, builders of these worlds are, and that's how you kind of recruit? How does it come about?
So the way CEEK came about, once I tried on Oculus, for example, and I really loved the idea of being inside of VR. I wanted to create, first of all, I wanted to attend a concert in VR. I started looking around, there was nothing. I wanted to, because when I tried Oculus, this was when I think Facebook was first looking at the technology. It hadn't even been acquired by Facebook. I happened to be at Facebook visiting at that time, and I tried things on. So there was not a lot of applications that were building for VR. So I said, wow, I'm very passionate about distributing content, especially for independents. And I said, wow, this would be great, especially for concerts, because I'd worked so closely with the music labels, while partnered with Xbox. I'd also worked very closely with the music labels while working with Tribune News. And so that was the first stop for me. I, called people at Universal Music that I had worked with on my online video platform, for example, and said, look, I think that this is the future of entertainment, especially for concerts, to have this social experience of being in the same venue, watching a concert from your favorite artist, being next to someone, whether they're in Japan or in Los Angeles or, wherever they are. This is the future, and they saw it as well. So they started to socialize it with, their teams. And then right around that time, a lot of the other headsets started to come around, and they called us back and wanted to work with us because, they said, look, we don't want to have to build for Oculus and HTC and Microsoft and this one and that one. That's just an endless cycle. So since your platform allows us to just build once, put it on your platform and distribute to all these places so we can reach all these different audiences and focus on what we do best, we would, love to partner with you to create the content. And so the first release that we had was with Megadeth. We have a patent awarded bundle that we released with it. The release did so well. Not only did it premiere #3 on Billboard, and it was crazy because for a thrash metal band, that was #3 behind Adele and Justin Bieber. It just really spoke to, the product that we had built. We also won the Clio Award specifically for that release, the Grammy, and the list goes on. And so with that successful release, a lot of other artists were willing, to try our product to reach a new audience.
Amazing. And I mean, look, they're not picking Android, they're not picking, whatever platform, but they're actually picking yours, right? So yes. Still a big decision. And can I ask then, COVID, right? Was that a, like helpful? I mean, I imagine a lot of people would just like a whole bunch of new users would be trying out the platform, looking for new experiences. Was that the case?
Yeah, absolutely. So COVID hits and we get an influx. So for example, Ziggy Marley and the Marley family, they were getting ready to do the 75th anniversary tour for Bob Marley. And because of COVID, they couldn't tour. So the entire event was held with CEEK. And we ended up, according to Billboard, and we had the #1 release of 2020, which was 9.4 million viewers within 24 hours. And then we also had Bon Jovi. Initially, we were doing a couple of releases with him, but then his tour was canceled. So everything came to CEEK. And the list goes on. Demi Lovato and Jesse Reyes, and the list goes on and on. So COVID, I think it was a big catalyst in terms of streaming and people being willing to try streaming technologies. But even before COVID, what we started noticing was a lot of the mega stars, global mega stars that are not able to monetize their content on traditional places like YouTube loved our platform because it gave them a conduit to connect directly with their fan base. And what I mean by that is, we have an artist, for example, that's based in Colombia, another one that's based in Peru, where they've had hundreds of millions of streams, but have gotten paid very little for it, because if there's no advertising, then they can't monetize it. We have people based in Tanzania that have billions of streams that they're not getting paid for, because again, if traditional platforms are paying based on monetizing the content through advertising, and they say to you, well, we didn't make any money from advertising in your country, that's one aspect. The other aspect is, depending on the stream, even for platforms like Spotify that pay per stream, they still pay in your local currency. So if you're in Mexico, you get, you might get, let's say, 0.5 pesos. If I'm in the UK, I'll get 0.5 pence. So if your million streams in Mexico is going to pay you less than my million streams in the UK. So that's such a challenge for a lot of global artists, because they're spending the same amount of money to create the content. And so this was a great opportunity for them to connect directly to their fans, and for their fans to be able to pay them directly, instead of having to rely on, advertising and other platforms that are we're not really built for their locales. So that's another influx of people that we've seen a lot.
This is kind of a nice segue to the crypto bit. Was that just you continuing to be at the forefront of the space? And now you've got, I think even the crypto world was kind of caught off guard by Axie Infinity and Decentraland and all this kind of stuff. Was that just something you saw coming, or how did the emergence or the integration with blockchain occur?
Yeah, no, I didn't see that coming. It was a market solution for us. So most of the superstars that were coming to us that had complaints about not liking the fact that, they were being paid through a black box. And what I mean by that is, look, I can get 1 billion views and I get paid $1,300, and I don't know how they calculated that. So one of the conditions that was very important to them was they wanted transparent tracking. They also wanted to have almost like a third-party tracking that's independent of the platform itself, that's distributing the content. And they also wanted fast payments, because in addition to getting paid peanuts, to be frank, for their billions of views, it was also taking forever. And then with the conversions and this one and that one. So we wanted to solve all of that. And looking at the technologies that were available, to me, it was a no-brainer that using the blockchain allowed us to do content usage verification. It could be validated by third parties in a transparent, secure fashion. So they could just look at it and say, oh, okay, I played 1,000 times. We issued, this many NFT tickets. Each ticket now has its own Ethereum address. So we issued this many tickets. This is how many times that this has been accessed and consumed, and then set up smart contracts so that when the performance criteria is met, the artist gets paid. And then on top of it, you don't have to worry about the currency conversions, and they can receive their money very, very quickly compared to having to wait just to access it. So that just made sense all around for everyone. And basically what we're solving with the blockchain was the trust issue that they've had with existing centralized platforms that just don't tell them how they're making their money, and then also are not paying them in time. Because they'd rather have 10,000 of their fans pay $1 to come and see them than to play 1 billion times and you're getting 1,300. Doesn't make sense. Or even 100,000 come and see them for $1 each, and be able to generate income that way. So that's how the blockchain aspect came about. And then we had a chance to work with Microsoft. At the time, they were looking for a streaming token template that will allow streams to be able to verify it. And that's exactly what we were doing. We worked with them on their blockchain. And yeah, it's just solving an industry solution. And I can tell you that in the future, or as part of Web 3.0, there's going to be the hallmark of Web 3.0 is going to be not just ownership, but also accountability. People want to be able to know how their streams or how their content is being consumed, and then also to be able to now offer NFT music as NFT or digital content as NFTs is amazing, because you don't have to worry about publishing. Because a lot of times you, in order to use a piece of content, you have to find all the publishers. And sometimes you can't find all of them. So if you can't find all of them, that means you can't use it. But now through smart contracts, I can have a fractional allocation to each publisher, which means that more people can use it because everybody automatically gets paid once, the content is used.
Amazing. And I was thinking as you're saying this, right, like surely some of the partners must be like, show up at the board meeting, like, oh, we're going kind of all in on blockchain right now, and we're going to build this. And it sounds like, Microsoft was incredibly supportive, but I'm thinking surely it must be hard for some partners that are maybe not so, maybe they're a little bit more risk averse, and you're just going into uncharted territory, both with the VR and now blockchain. How do you work through that?
Because a lot of it was organic, right? So even before we were using the blockchain, because when people put on their VR headsets, that's not the time for them to take out their wallets and try to pay for something. So before we integrated blockchain, you had to buy coins, no different than if I'm using Roblox and I have to buy Robux or Fortnite and I have to buy those coins. So the mechanism was there for you to buy those coins, and every time you have your headset on and you see something that you want to consume, you just, gaze at it, and then it deducts those coins automatically from your wallet. So the mechanism for payment was already there. The technology wasn't something that was forced or out of place. So if, for example, if I come to you as a content distributor and you say, well, how are you going to secure my content? And I say, well, I'm going to use 128 level encryption or 256-bit encryption. You're not going to say, well, explain, you're just going to say, okay, well, is that, the standard? So in terms of the technology itself and how we were implementing it, because the UI was so friendly, they could just understand it, like, oh, it makes sense. So you're deducting coins from my wallet, and you're tracking this coin that you're deducting on an immutable ledger so that it can be verified without any changes. Yeah, that makes sense. That's what we were selling, and that's what we're selling, and that's what we're doing. It's a utility token, and the utility of that is the content usage tracking, verification, and then the smart contracts to be able to pay. And then we've made it super easy to where if the payments, if you need to convert the payments to fiat, you can do that too. So It's not, we didn't overcomplicate it. We super, super simplified it so it makes sense for everyone that's involved. Because, think about Roblox. I mean, if you're buying points to, like if you have a kid and they play Roblox and they're buying points,
couple. They
right?
love it.
Yeah, exactly. So if you have a kid and they're buying points to play Roblox, it's not really you're not even thinking twice about it. And that's the same way that we had the CEEK coins implemented, to where you're buying bundles, you're buying packs, and you're doing all these different things with it. And we're saying, yeah, now you can, buy avatar clothing with it. But the avatar clothing, we already had, an address, a unique address assigned to it. But now we're going to make it an NFT. So the protocol that's going to use is going to be different. But to you, it doesn't really make a difference. It just means that the tracking is going to be more accurate. It's going to be more transparent, and that you're going to get paid faster.
So can I ask then, as this evolves, right? And I kind of just picture in my head is, and that becomes, the emergence of like high fashion getting involved in CEEK. Then you've got I imagine you've got a tremendous advantage with your background in satellite, in the fact that you'll be able to deliver a much better VR experience in the short term, as opposed to this kind of low poly competitors. Is that kind of generally where you're headed?
Yeah, that's generally it. And a lot of times people ask about our content and how we're able to deliver a lot of the content. For example, we recently had an experience with Randy Zuckerberg, and her avatar walks into one of the CEEK studios. And the video from that was posted, a lot of people thought that was real, because the avatars are photorealistic, the studio is photorealistic. And so there are a lot of techniques that we're using. We have, 6 patents that have already been awarded. A lot of techniques that we're using in terms of being able to render the content in very specific ways, so that the content fidelity is very, very important to us. And then we're also in a specific lane. A lot of people are focused on gaming. From the very beginning, I wanted to focus on everyday experiences. So, when you think about YouTube and, Spotify and the billions and billions of music that people consume and the types of content that people consume, those are the types of content, the everyday usage that I wanted to focus on. So concerts, sports, and then also we've done stuff with education, with a children's hospital, for example, building infant, child, and adult CPR training for new moms and clinicians and stuff like that. So the type of things that you're going to be doing on a daily basis, which is why it's important to have as real an experience as possible, but also magical, because it's a combination of the two.
That's really, really awesome. And I guess the commerce, right? You just I think it's almost, I can't remember who I was speaking to, and they were talking about, hey, we really want this seamless experience online in terms of shopping, and you kind of almost enhance it. I mean, I imagine it's kind of start at the merchandise stand or something at the concert for you, but this is repercussions of offline must be tremendous. How is commerce being facilitated, and how do you see that kind of impacting our everyday life?
Yeah, absolutely. I see that with commerce is going to go more and more towards virtual, right? I think even after, I don't know if we're post-pandemic, but I think most people think we're post-pandemic, but a lot of people haven't gone back to their usual ways of doing things, right? Because they found more efficient or more convenient ways of doing things. And so if I'm shopping online, for example, and my avatar can try on the clothes that I like, then I can order that and make sure that if it's a one of, that clothing, maybe I get that as an NFT, and I know that I can wear that for a while inside of the virtual world, but maybe even in the real world. And then when it comes time to sell it, there's so many places now. You think of RealReal and all these different places that sell designer clothes and other types of clothing. Now it becomes a receipt, a verifiable receipt that you have that original. And then, so more and more people are going to go towards that. And I think more retailers are also going to they're going to rethink how they stock their inventory. Why have all that inventory sitting there when you can have it digitally, and then you bring in the ones that people are buying the most? It's more efficient, it's cost efficient, is more sustainable for the environment. So we're already seeing that. I saw how many people were buying the Gucci NFTs, and and it's not just going to be the fashion industry, is going to be across the board. Test driving a car, I can test drive the different cars, because in VR we can actually create the actual features, we can create the actual product features. So when I'm test driving and I'm looking at the dashboard, I'm actually looking at the car that I want to buy. I can visualize myself in it, I could see how it handles and all of that.
Yeah, amazing. And just on that, from a CEEK perspective, all this kind of convergence must be super exciting to you, because I imagine that like a lot of this, at least the fashion and everything that's kind of outside of entertainment does in some way get driven by entertainment, and you're like set up in such a, phenomenal way that you're going to benefit from it over time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because, music drives a lot of platforms. Music drives culture, culture drives music. So it starts with music, and people come in there, let's say they come for their favorite concert, but then now they have to figure out, what is my avatar going to wear going to this concert, and they're going to start buying different things for those avatars. And then the next thing is, what am I going to drive to this concert? And then the next thing is inviting people over to my house. For example, we have a land sale that's coming. People are going to be able to buy land to build homes and, all kinds of experiences on those lands. So one thing just feeds the other. And then it goes into, can I do a workshop with this? Can I date in here? So it's just really, it starts with entertainment, but it goes into our lifestyle, the way we live, the way we work, all the above.
Mary, thank you so much for your time today. Loved every minute of it, and best of luck with CEEK.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining Dream Pushers. Inspired. Subscribe and share. With dedication, craft your legacy. Push boundaries.